A frozen wolf pup collapsed on his porch every night, and one evening, he finally opened the door. In the depths of a relentless winter, where every breath seemed to freeze in the air, Ethan lived a life shrouded in isolation and heartache. Each night, as the storm howled outside, the sight of that shivering, vulnerable creature stirred something long buried within him. A flicker of hope in a world that had grown dark. Little did he know that this small act of compassion would lead to a profound transformation, igniting a bond that would defy the harshness of the winter and the walls he had built around his heart. In a desolate cabin tucked deep within a snow-covered forest, Ethan sat in silence, his heart heavy with a loneliness that seemed to seep through the very walls around him. The fierce winter winds howled outside, a relentless reminder of the isolation he had chosen for himself. Each night, he would curl up in his worn armchair, staring into the flickering flames of the court fireplace, lost in memories that haunted him like restless ghosts, reminders of a life once filled with laughter and warmth. The cabin, with its creaking floorboards and drafty windows, felt like a prison of his own making. Dust motes danced in the pale light, and the faint smell of wood smoke mixed with the scent of old books that lined the shelves. He had long ago given up on the world beyond his door, retreating into the solitude that felt both comforting and suffocating. The vibrant life he once knew had faded into a distant memory, replaced by the cold embrace of winter and the shadows of regret. But tonight was different. As he peered through the frost-laden window, his gaze fell upon a small, frozen form huddled on his porch. A wolf pup, its delicate body trembling against the cold fur dusted with snow. Ethan's heart raced, torn between the instinct to help and the weight of his own despair. The sight of the pup stirred something long buried within him, a flicker of hope. In a world that had grown dark, he watched as the pup's breath formed little clouds in the frigid air, each exhale a reminder of its struggle for survival. How long had it been out there, alone and vulnerable? The thought gnawed at him, and he felt a familiar pang of compassion clash with the fear that had kept him shackled to his solitude for so long. What if he reached out and failed? What if he let her in, only to lose her like he had lost everything else? The questions spiraled in his mind, each one more daunting than the last. The wind howled louder, a mournful cry that echoed through the stillness of the night. The pup collapsed, its tiny body barely visible against the white snow, and in that moment, Ethan felt an ache deep within him. He had built these walls to protect himself from pain, yet here was a creature that needed him, innocent, fragile, and desperate for warmth. As the storm raged on, he wrestled with his emotions, the battle within him growing fiercer by the second. The fire crackled softly in the background, punctuating the silence as Ethan's resolve began to crumble. He thought of the days when he had been surrounded by friends and family, the laughter and joy that had once filled his life. The memories felt like a distant echo, but the sight of the pup sparked a flicker of something he thought was lost forever: compassion. Then, with a surge of determination, he rose from his chair, the worn fabric of his jeans rubbing against his skin as he moved. He could no longer ignore the pup's plight. With trembling hands, he opened the door, the creaking sound breaking the stillness of the night like a gunshot. "Hey there," he whispered, crouching down to the pup's level, his heart racing as he extended a hand. "You're safe now." The pup looked up, its big, expressive eyes filled with a mix of fear and hope. It took a hesitant step forward, then another, its tiny legs wobbling in the snow. In that moment, something shifted within Ethan. He felt a warmth spread through him, a connection forged in the unlikeliest of circumstances. He scooped the pup into his arms, feeling the warmth of its small body against his chest, a stark contrast to the icy air outside. As he cradled the pup close, he could feel its heartbeat, rapid and unsure. In that instant, the walls he had built around his heart began to crack, the icy grip of isolation loosening its hold. He felt an unfamiliar sense of purpose surging within him, a glimmer of hope that perhaps he was not as alone as he had believed. "Let's get you warm," he murmured, stepping back inside the cabin and closing the door against the howling storm. The fire crackled to life, casting flickering shadows on the walls as he settled into his chair, the pup nestled in his lap. Ethan gazed down at her, and for the first time in years, he felt a spark of something almost like joy. This small, shivering creature was a reminder that life was still possible, that connection could be found even in the darkest of times. But this was just the beginning of a journey that would test both of their spirits. As the days passed, the storm outside began to wane, giving way to a fragile stillness that blanketed the forest in a soft, white glow. The cabin, once filled with silence and shadows, transformed into a haven of warmth and life. Ethan spent his days caring for Luna, as he had named the wolf pup, watching her grow stronger with each passing hour. Her playful spirit ignited something within him that had long been dormant, a flicker of joy that began to illuminate the dark corners of his heart. Luna was a bundle of energy, her tiny paws dancing across the wooden floor, her playful barks echoing off the walls. She chased after the flickering shadows cast by the flames, her bright eyes filled with curiosity and wonder. Each time Ethan watched her, he felt a sense of purpose blossom within him, a reason to step outside the confines of his grief. He found himself laughing more, delighted by her antics as she tumbled over her own paws, her joyful spirit contagious. To make her feel at home, he crafted a makeshift bed for her near the fireplace, lining it with blankets and old clothes that had been gathering dust. Every time Luna curled up in her cozy spot, a wave of warmth washed over him. He cherished the moments they shared, the rhythm of their lives slowly intertwining. Mornings were filled with playful wrestling matches, their laughter filling the air as they tumbled together on the floor. In the afternoons, they would explore the nearby woods, Ethan showing Luna the wonders of the world outside their cabin. Each tree, each sound, a new adventure for both of them. However, the harsh reality of winter still loomed over them like a dark cloud. As Ethan gathered supplies, he realized their food stock was running low. He had been so focused on caring for Luna that he hadn't paid attention to his own needs. The fear of failing both himself and Luna crept into his mind like a chill, threatening to extinguish the warmth they had built together. He knew that if they were to survive the winter, he needed to act quickly. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Ethan's mood turned somber. The crackling flames cast long shadows on the walls, and he stared into the fire, lost in thought. Luna sensed his change in demeanor, her head tilting to the side as she gazed up at him with those big, soulful eyes. He reached down to scratch her behind the ears, feeling the softness of her fur beneath his fingers. In that moment, he knew he had to be strong, not just for himself, but for her. "Tomorrow, we'll go hunting," he declared, surprising even himself with his determination. "We'll find food, Luna. I promise." The next morning, they set out early, the sun just beginning to rise, casting golden rays through the trees. The woods were still and serene, the only sounds the crunch of snow beneath their feet and the occasional rustle of wildlife. As they ventured deeper into the forest, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. Hunting was a skill he hadn't practiced in years, but the thought of failing Luna pushed him forward. They stumbled upon a small clearing, and Ethan knelt down, surveying the area for signs of game. He showed Luna how to sniff the air and listen for movement, and to his surprise, she responded with enthusiasm, darting around the snow-covered ground as if she were born for this. Her energy invigorated him, reminding him of the bond they were forging. Hours passed, and just as doubt began to creep in, a movement caught Ethan's eye. A small rabbit, nibbling on the sparse vegetation, oblivious to their presence. Ethan's heart raced as he signaled to Luna to stay quiet. They moved slowly, carefully, and just when the rabbit seemed within reach, it bolted, darting away into the underbrush. "Wait!" Ethan called, and without thinking, Luna took off after it, her instincts kicking in. He watched in awe as she bounded through the snow, her spirit unyielding. The chase was exhilarating, the thrill of the hunt awakening something primal within him. He felt alive, filled with a sense of purpose, as he followed her through the trees. But as the rabbit disappeared into the thicket, Ethan felt a pang of disappointment. He had hoped that today would be the day they succeeded. Yet, as he turned to look for Luna, he saw her returning to him, her tail wagging furiously despite the failure. She was alive with excitement, her joy infectious, And in that moment, Ethan realized that it wasn't just about the hunt, it was about the journey they were on together. As they made their way back to the cabin, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He might not have brought home food, but he had gained something far more valuable: a deeper bond with Luna, a connection that transcended their struggles. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. That night, as they settled by the fire, Luna curled up beside him, her warmth seeping into his side. He looked down at her, a sense of gratitude swelling in his chest. No longer was he alone in his struggles. He had a companion who relied on him just as much as he relied on her. Ethan smiled, the flicker of hope that had ignited within him, now a steady flame. The journey ahead would be filled with trials, but with Luna by his side, he felt ready to face them all. He began to share stories with her, tales of his past, the adventures he had once embarked on before retreating into solitude. He told her about the mountains he had climbed, the rivers he had crossed, and the laughter shared with friends around a campfire. With each story, he felt the burdens of his past lifting, each word a step toward healing. Yet, just when he thought he could breathe easy, the storm outside intensified, bringing new threats to their fragile peace. The winds howled louder, rattling the windows and sending a chill through the cabin, a stark reminder that the winter was not finished with them yet. As snow piled against the door and the howling winds echoed through the trees, Ethan felt a sense of foreboding settle over him. "Stay close, Luna," he whispered, wrapping his arms around her as they huddled together by the fire. The warmth of their bond was a comforting shield against the encroaching darkness, but deep down, Ethan knew they would need to prepare for whatever lay ahead. As the night wore on, the storm raged outside, but inside the cabin, a new light flickered, a light born from companionship, resilience, and the promise of new beginnings. Together, they would face the challenges of the winter and discover the strength that lay within them both. The storm raged on through the night, its howling winds a fierce reminder of the unforgiving season outside. The cabin, a small sanctuary amidst the chaos, felt both like a refuge and a prison. Ethan and Luna, huddled together by the fire, the warmth of the flickering flames casting dancing shadows on the walls. Outside, the snow piled higher, creating a fortress of white that isolated them from the world. As dawn broke, a soft light filtered through the frosted windows, illuminating the cabin with a pale glow. Ethan awoke to find Luna nestled against him, her small body providing a comforting warmth. He smiled, grateful for her presence. She was a source of solace in the midst of the storm, a reminder that even in the darkest times, there was still light to be found. Ethan rose and stoked the fire, adding more wood to keep the flames alive. He gazed out the window, taking in the sight of the winter wonderland that surrounded them. The world outside was transformed into a quiet, snow-covered landscape, each tree and branch draped in a thick layer of white. Yet, beneath the beauty lay the harsh reality of survival. He knew they couldn't remain cooped up in the cabin for long. They needed food and supplies to endure the winter. With determination set in his heart, Ethan decided it was time to venture out, even if only to scout the area for any signs of game. He dressed warmly, pulling on layers of thick clothing and wrapping a scarf around his neck that had once belonged to his late father. As he prepared, Luna watched him with eager anticipation, her tail wagging as she sensed the change in his mood. "Let's go, girl," he said, opening the door and stepping into the crisp morning air. The cold hit him like a wave, but he welcomed it, feeling invigorated by the challenge ahead. Luna bounded out beside him, her playful spirit undeterred by the chill. Together, they ventured into the snowy expanse, the world around them sparkling in the morning light. As they made their way through the woods, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was no longer just a man hiding from his past. He was a guardian, a protector of the little life that depended on him. Luna bounded ahead, occasionally stopping to sniff the ground, her instincts guiding her as she explored. Ethan followed her lead, keenly observing the signs of wildlife in the area. They trekked deeper into the forest, where the trees stood tall and proud, their branches heavy with snow. Ethan's breath clouded in front of him, each exhale mixing with the fresh scent of pine and earth. He felt alive, invigorated by the beauty of the wilderness that surrounded them. Suddenly, Luna halted. Her ears perked up as she listened intently. Ethan paused, watching her closely. She had sensed something. He crouched down, motioning for her to stay quiet. Together, they waited, the stillness of the forest enveloping them. A moment later, he spotted movement, a small herd of deer grazing in a clearing not far from where they stood. Ethan's heart raced at the sight. This was their chance. He had read about hunting and had seen others do it, but now he had to rely on his instincts and the bond he had formed with Luna. He signaled to her to stay close as they crept forward, moving slowly and quietly through the snow. As they drew nearer, Ethan's pulse quickened. He could see the deer clearly now, their graceful forms outlined against the white backdrop. He knew that, if they were to succeed, they had to be patient and strategic. Luna, sensing the tension in the air, remained perfectly still, her eyes locked onto the deer. Just as Ethan was about to make his move, one of the deer lifted its head, sensing something amiss. Panic surged through him as he felt the moment slipping away. In a split second, the deer turned and bolted into the woods, the rest of the herd following suit. "Luna, wait!" Ethan called, but she was already off, bounding after the deer with instinctual ferocity. He watched in awe as she bounded through the snow, her spirit unyielding. The chase was exhilarating, the thrill of the hunt awakening something primal within him. He felt alive, filled with a sense of purpose as he followed her through the trees. But as the rabbit disappeared into the thicket, Ethan felt a pang of disappointment. He had hoped that today would be the day they succeeded. Yet, as he turned to look for Luna, he saw her returning to him, her tail wagging furiously despite the failure. She was alive with excitement, her joy infectious, and in that moment, Ethan realized that it wasn't just about the hunt, it was about the journey they were on together. As they made their way back to the cabin, Ethan felt a renewed sense of purpose. He might not have brought home food, but he had gained something far more valuable, a deeper bond with Luna, a connection that transcended their struggles. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. That night, as they settled by the fire, Ethan found himself lost in thought. He realized that the journey ahead would not be easy. The winter would grow harsher, and their survival depended on their ability to adapt and learn from each experience. But he felt a spark of hope igniting within him, a flame that refused to be extinguished. He looked down at Luna, who was curled up beside him, her eyes half closed as she drifted into sleep. "We'll figure this out, Luna," he whispered softly. "I promise." Outside, the storm continued to howl, but inside the cabin, a new light flickered. A light born from companionship, resilience, and the promise of new beginnings. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. And Ethan felt ready to embrace the heart of winter, knowing that they would weather it together. As the days turned into weeks, the snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. The harshness of winter was relentless, but Ethan and Luna adapted to their surroundings. They learned to forage for edible plants and berries hidden beneath the snow, their survival instincts sharpening with each passing day. Ethan even fashioned a small sled from discarded wood, allowing them to carry supplies more easily as they ventured further into the woods. But as the weeks wore on, the reality of their situation began to weigh heavily on Ethan's shoulders. The supplies were dwindling faster than he had anticipated, and he knew he had to take greater risks. On one particularly frigid morning, he decided to venture into town, a place he had avoided since he first retreated to the cabin. The thought of facing the familiar streets, now wrapped in a shroud of snow, filled him with a sense of dread. "Stay close, Luna," he instructed as they made their way down the path leading to the main road. The journey was long and treacherous, the snowdrifts rising high along the sides of the trail. With every step, Ethan felt the weight of his decision grow heavier. The town was not just a place of supplies. It was a reminder of everything he had lost, the friends, the laughter, the life he had once cherished. As they approached the outskirts of town, he felt his heart begin to race. The buildings loomed ahead, their roofs heavy with snow, the streets eerily quiet. It was as if the world had held its breath, waiting for him to make the next move. With Luna by his side, he stepped onto the main street, the crunch of snow beneath his boots breaking the silence. The small shops and houses were familiar yet foreign, their windows frosted over like memories he had tried to forget. As they walked, he noticed a few townspeople milling about, their faces masked against the cold. Ethan felt a pang of anxiety as he caught sight of an old friend, Maya, standing outside the local grocery store. She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise as she recognized him. "Ethan?" she called, her voice a mixture of disbelief and concern. He hesitated, caught between the urge to turn and run and the desire to reconnect with a part of his past. "Hey, Maya," he replied, forcing a smile as he approached her cautiously. Luna stayed close to his side, sensing the tension in the loans. What happened to you?" Maya asked, her eyes scanning him for signs of the man he used to be. "We thought you had disappeared. Are you okay?" Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but the words caught in his throat. How could he explain the turmoil that had driven him into hiding, the pain that had kept him from reaching out? Instead, he simply nodded, forcing a chuckle. "Yeah, just needed some time away. You know how it is." Maya's expression softened, but there was still worry etched on her face. "You could have reached out. We all missed you. The town hasn't been the same without you." Her words struck a chord deep within him, a reminder of the connections he had severed. "I know, I needed to clear my head." He glanced at Luna, who was now sniffing at a fallen snowbank, oblivious to the weight of the conversation. "Is this your dog?" Maya asked, her tone shifting to one of curiosity. "She's beautiful." "This is Luna," he said, a hint of pride in his voice. "I found her during the storm. She's been my companion ever since." Maya crouched down, extending a hand toward Luna, who sniffed it curiously before wagging her tail. "She's lucky to have you, and it seems you're lucky to have her, too." Ethan felt a warmth spread through him, a spark of connection reigniting in the cold of winter. As they talked, he found himself sharing snippets of his life in the cabin, the struggles and the small victories. It felt good to open up, to let someone in after so long. "Listen, if you ever need supplies or anything, just let me know," Maya offered, her expression earnest. "We're all worried about you, Ethan. Don't be a stranger." He nodded, gratitude swelling in his chest. "Thanks, Maya. I appreciate that more than you know." As they parted ways, Ethan felt a sense of relief wash over him. He had faced a fear that had loomed over him for weeks, and he had survived the encounter. With Luna by his side, he made his way back to the cabin, feeling lighter than he had in days. That night, as they settled by the fire, Ethan reflected on his encounter with Maya. It reminded him that he was not alone in his struggles. The world continued to turn, and the people he had once cared about still cared for him. As he watched Luna curl up beside him, her eyes fluttering closed, he felt a surge of hope. "It's going to be okay, Luna," he whispered, stroking her fur gently. "We'll make it through this winter together." Outside, the storm continued to howl, but inside the cabin, a new light flickered. A light born from companionship, resilience, and the promise of new beginnings. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead, and Ethan felt ready to embrace the heart of winter, knowing that they would weather it together, side by side. As the days stretched into weeks, the grip of winter tightened around the cabin, its icy fingers creeping into every corner. Ethan and Luna had settled into a rhythm, their days filled with exploration and small adventures. Despite the cold, there was warmth in their bond, a growing friendship that transcended the solitude of the snowy wilderness. Yet, the reality of their situation weighed heavily on Ethan's mind. Food was still scarce, and the supplies he had managed to gather were dwindling faster than he had anticipated. One morning, he woke to a world transformed by a fresh blanket of snow. The landscape was serene, the trees heavy with white, but a sense of urgency gnawed at him. He knew they had to venture further into the forest to find food. As he dressed, he felt a mix of anticipation and anxiety. The hunt this time would be different. They had to be strategic, and he needed to be more aware of their surroundings. "Ready for another adventure, Luna?" he asked, pulling on his thick boots. She tilted her head, her ears perked up, eagerly awaiting the day's plans. He smiled at her enthusiasm. It made the weight of his worries feel a little lighter. Once outside, the cold air hit him like a slap, invigorating and sharp. Together, they set off into the woods, the snow crunching beneath their feet. Ethan led the way, his mind racing with thoughts of how to secure food for them. As they walked, he began to notice the signs of wildlife around them. Tracks in the snow, the faint sound of rustling in the underbrush. Each clue heightened his senses, igniting a primal instinct deep within him. After walking for some time, Ethan spotted a track that looked promising, deer prints leading deeper into the forest. "This way, Luna," he said, pointing toward the trail. The pup wagged her tail and bounded ahead, her excitement palpable. They followed the tracks, moving cautiously while keeping their eyes peeled for any movement. The further they ventured, the more Ethan felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He was no longer just hunting for sustenance. He was hunting for hope. The thought galvanized him. If he could find food today, it would mean survival for both him and Luna, a reprieve from the gnawing hunger that had begun to settle in their stomachs. Hours passed, and just as Ethan began to feel the first twinges of doubt, they stumbled upon a small clearing. It was here that he spotted another herd of deer, grazing peacefully in the distance. His heart raced as he crouched down, motioning for Luna to stay low beside him. They were closer than he had ever been to securing a meal. Ethan took a deep breath, steadying himself. The deer were more alert than he had anticipated, but they seemed unaware of his presence. He knew this was their moment. He planned to use the element of surprise. As he assessed the situation, he noticed the wind was blowing toward him, which meant the deer wouldn't catch his scent. It was the perfect opportunity. "Stay close," he whispered to Luna, who was trembling with excitement beside him. He knew he had to be quick and decisive. With a nod of determination, he signaled to Luna to follow him as they crept forward, inching closer to the herd. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving only the sound of their breathing and the rustling of leaves. Just as Ethan was about to make his move, one of the deer lifted its head, sensing something amiss. Panic surged through him as he felt the moment slipping away. In a split second, the deer turned and bolted into the woods, the rest of the herd following suit. "Luna, wait," Ethan called, but she was already off, bounding after the fleeing animals with instinctual ferocity. He felt a surge of frustration mixed with fear. They had come so close, and now the opportunity was slipping away. He dashed after her, calling her name, desperate to keep her from getting lost. "Luna, come back," he shouted, but she was completely focused on the chase. He watched as she bounded through the snow, her energy and determination impressive. After a few moments, Ethan caught up to her, panting heavily. "Luna, stop," he commanded, and to his relief, she halted, her tongue lolling out as she turned to face him. He took a moment to catch his breath, looking at her with a mixture of admiration and exasperation. "You can't chase every deer, girl. We need to be smarter about this." They stood together in the quiet of the forest, the silence punctuated only by the distant sounds of the herd moving further away. Ethan sighed, feeling the weight of their situation settle heavily on his shoulders. They needed food, and failure weighed on him like a shroud. But as he glanced down at Luna, he saw her bright eyes filled with mischief, and he couldn't help but smile. "All right, let's regroup," he said, scratching her behind the ears. "We'll figure this out." After a moment, Ethan realized they needed a new strategy. They couldn't rely solely on chasing down deer. They had to think creatively. He recalled hearing stories from hunters about using bait to lure animals. Perhaps he could set up a small trap or a baited area to draw the deer in. With renewed determination, he began to formulate a plan. "Let's head back to the cabin and gather some supplies," he instructed Luna. She wagged her tail, ready to follow him back. As they walked, he felt the weight of their challenges, but also a flicker of hope. Together, they were a team, and they would find a way to survive. Back at the cabin, Ethan rummaged through the supplies he had left, gathering twine, old wood, and anything he could use to construct a makeshift trap. Luna watched curiously, her head tilted to the side as he worked. He explained his plan to her, feeling a sense of camaraderie as they navigated the tasks together. "All right, Luna, we're going to set this up near the clearing where we spotted the deer," he said, fastening the twine to a sturdy branch he had found. "If we make it enticing enough, they might come back." With quote, Luna's help, her eager presence, and playful spirit, Ethan spent the rest of the afternoon constructing the trap. It was simple, but he hoped it would be effective. He placed some old fruit and bits of bread he had saved as bait, then positioned the trap carefully, ensuring that it would work as intended. "Now we wait," he said, stepping back to admire their handiwork. Luna sniffed the area, her tail wagging in anticipation. They would return in the morning to check if they had been successful. That night, as they sat by the fire, Ethan felt a mix of excitement and anxiety. The prospect of a successful hunt filled him with hope, but he couldn't shake the fear of failure. He shared stories with Luna, recounting tales of other hunts he had witnessed, the camaraderie of fellow hunters, and the thrill of the chase. With each word, he felt more connected to the life he had once known, the friendships he had forged. "Tomorrow will be different, Luna," he whispered as he stroked her fur gently. "We'll make it work." As the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, Ethan felt a sense of determination building within him. They would face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with hope and the bond they had forged in the heart of winter. Together, they were not just surviving. They were learning, growing, and finding strength in each other. The night dragged on, and as Ethan lay on the floor beside the fire, he felt sleep beginning to tug at his eyelids. He kept glancing at Luna, who was curled up by his side, her soft breathing a soothing sound in the otherwise quiet cabin. The flames danced, casting flickering shadows on the walls, and for a moment, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace wash over him. But as he closed his eyes, the reality of their situation crashed over him like a wave. What if the trap didn't work? What if they went hungry again? The fear gnawed at him, but he pushed it aside, willing himself to believe in their plan. He couldn't allow doubt to creep in. Luna was depending on him. With a deep breath, he forced himself to focus on the warmth of the fire and the comforting presence of Luna beside him. They were in this together, and together they would find a way to survive. As the first light of dawn broke through the windows, Ethan awoke to the sound of soft whimpering. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes and turned to see Luna staring at him, her bright eyes full of eagerness and a hint of impatience. All right, I'm up," he chuckled, ruffling her fur as he pushed himself to his feet. The fire had died down to glowing embers, and he quickly added more logs to reignite it, the warmth slowly filling the cabin once more. After a quick breakfast of whatever scraps they had left, Ethan prepared to head back to the clearing. The anticipation buzzed in the air, a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "Let's see if our plan worked, Luna," he said, grabbing the makeshift sled he had fashioned from old wood. He loaded it with a few supplies, some tools, a small knife, and a container for whatever they might catch. Together, they set off into the woods once again, the sun shining brightly overhead. The path was easier to navigate now, the snow slightly packed down from the previous day. Ethan felt a renewed sense of hope as they made their way back to the clearing, the memories of yesterday's hunt still fresh in his mind. When they finally reached the spot where he had set the trap, Ethan's heart raced. He approached cautiously, scanning the area for any signs of movement. As they drew closer, he felt a knot of tension in his stomach. What if the trap was empty? What if nothing had come? But then, as they reached the clearing, he saw it, the trap had sprung, and there, caught within it, was a small hare. Relief flooded through him, and he turned to Luna, who was wagging her tail furiously, her excitement palpable. "We did it, girl! We actually did it!" he exclaimed, rushing to the trap to inspect their catch. The little hare struggled against the twine, its eyes wide with fear. Ethan quickly released it, taking care to avoid causing unnecessary harm. This was a life he respected, and he felt a pang of guilt for having to hunt it. But survival meant making tough choices, and he reminded himself of the hunger that gnawed at his belly. He knelt down, carefully securing the hair and preparing it for their journey back. He felt a sense of accomplishment surge through him, a feeling that they had taken a significant step toward ensuring their survival. With the hair secured, they made their way back to the cabin, the sled gliding smoothly over the snow. Ethan's heart swelled with pride as he thought of the journey they had taken to reach this point. They were a team, learning and adapting together, and with each challenge, they were growing stronger. Once back inside the cabin, Ethan carefully prepared the hair, using every part of it with respect. Nothing would go to waste. Luna watched closely, her bright eyes following his every movement. "You'll get your share too, don't worry," he said with a grin, tossing her a few small scraps of meat as he worked. After a warm meal, Ethan felt the warmth of hope fill the cabin. They had succeeded, and for the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of optimism. The winter wasn't finished with them yet, but they were learning how to navigate its challenges together. Later that night, as they settled by the fire, Ethan reflected on how far they had come. The bond he shared with Luna was stronger than he had ever imagined it could be. She had pulled him out of the depths of his solitude and had shown him the beauty of companionship. "Tomorrow, we'll scout further," he said softly, gazing into the fire. "We'll find more food, and maybe even some supplies we can trade with Maya. There's a whole world out there, and we're going to explore it together." Luna rested her for Maya, head on his lap, her eyes drooping as she drifted off to sleep. Ethan smiled down at her, feeling a warmth spread through him. He knew that whatever lay ahead, they would face it together, side by side, ready to embrace the challenges of winter and the promise of a new dawn. The days rolled on, each one blending into the next as winter continued to blanket the world in its icy grasp. Ethan and Luna had settled into a routine that felt almost comfortable, one filled with early morning hunts, afternoons spent gathering supplies, and cozy evenings by the fire. They were becoming adept at navigating the challenges of the wilderness, and the bond between them deepened with each passing day. Yet, despite their progress, Ethan felt an unshakable sense of restlessness stirring within him. The cabin, while warm and safe, felt increasingly confining. The walls echoed with silence, and he yearned for the thrill of exploration beyond the familiar woods surrounding their home. He knew that they needed to gather more supplies, and the thought of venturing into town again lingered in his mind like an uninvited guest. One morning, as the sun broke through the horizon, casting golden rays over the snow-dusted landscape, Ethan made a decision. "Today we're going to explore further," he announced to Luna, who wagged her tail excitedly at the prospect of adventure. "I want to see what lies beyond the forest." Ethan packed a small bag with essentials, a flask of water, some jerky, a small knife, and a few tools. He also brought some of the remaining scraps from their previous hunts, knowing that they might encounter someone in town who could trade for supplies they desperately needed. Luna bounced around him, her enthusiasm infectious as they prepared for their journey. "Let's go, Luna," he called, stepping outside into the crisp morning air. The cold nipped at his cheeks, and he took a moment to breathe in the fresh, pine-scented air. The world was alive, with the bud-bud sounds of winter birds chirping in the trees, the crunch of snow beneath their feet, and the distant rustle of branches swaying in the breeze. As they set off, Ethan felt a spark of excitement flicker in his chest. They followed the path leading away from the cabin, deeper into the woods, where the trees grew denser and the snow lay thick and untouched. The landscape was breathtaking, a winter wonderland that felt both magical and daunting. "Stay close, Luna," he urged, keeping a watchful eye on her as she bounded ahead, her nose exploring every new scent that wafted through the air. They ventured deeper into the forest, navigating through the towering pines and the heavy drifts of snow. With each step, Ethan felt a sense of liberation wash over him, as if they were shedding the weight of their isolation. After a while, they reached the edge of the forest, where the trees thinned out and gave way to a vast open field. The sight was stunning, a sweeping expanse of snow, stretching out before them, glistening under the bright sun. Ethan paused, taking in the beauty of the scene. He turned to Luna, whose eyes sparkled with excitement. "Look at that girl. he said, gesturing toward the horizon. It's beautiful, isn't it? Eager to explore, Luna darted forward into the open space, her small form a blur of energy against the stark white backdrop. Ethan couldn't help but laugh at her exuberance, the sound echoing in the stillness of the field. It was moments like these that reminded him of the joy of life, even in the depths of winter. As they crossed the field, Ethan noticed something in the distance, a small structure partially hidden by the trees at the far end. Curiosity piqued. He decided to investigate. "Let's go check it out," he said, adjusting the strap of his bag as he led the way toward the mysterious building. As they approached, he realized it was an old hunting cabin, its wooden frame weathered by time and the elements. The roof sagged under the weight of snow, and the door hung slightly ajar. Ethan felt a mix of excitement and trepidation. This could be a treasure trove of supplies, or it could be a place long abandoned. "Stay close, Luna," he cautioned, pushing the door open slowly. It creaked ominously, echoing through the stillness. Inside, the cabin was dark and cold, but the faint scent of wood and something else, perhaps old leather, hung in the air. Dust motes floated in the beams of sunlight filtering through the cracks in the walls. Ethan stepped inside, his heart racing. The interior was sparse, with only a few pieces of furniture left behind, a rickety table, a couple of chairs, and a stone fireplace that had long since gone cold. He scanned the room, looking for anything useful. As he moved deeper into the cabin, he spotted a set of shelves along one wall, covered in a thick layer of dust. With a surge of hope, he approached them, brushing off the cobwebs and dirt. To his delight, he found a few old tools, a rusted axe, a couple of saws, and a few nails. They might be worn, but they were better than nothing. "Look at this, Luna," he exclaimed, holding up the axe. "This could really help us." Luna padded over, sniffing at the tools with interest, her tail wagging as if she too understood their significance. Ethan continued to rummage through the shelves, and as he did, he stumbled upon an old trunk tucked away in the corner, its surface rough and worn. He knelt down, pulling at the rusted latch. With a little effort, it sprang open, revealing a collection of items that made his heart leap. A few cans of food, some dried herbs, and a small bundle of thick blankets. "This is amazing," he said, almost in disbelief. He quickly sorted through the contents, feeling a sense of excitement and relief wash over him. The food would help them immensely, and the blankets would provide extra warmth during the coldest nights. Luna sniffed the trunk curiously, her nose twitching with anticipation. Ethan pulled out a can and checked the label. It was still sealed and looked relatively fresh. "We hit the jackpot, girl!" he cheered, placing the can in his bag. "This will last us for weeks." As he packed away the treasures, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. He turned, glancing around the cabin, but saw nothing out of the ordinary. The stillness was almost unnerving, but he shrugged it off, attributing it to his heightened sense of awareness. After gathering what he could, Ethan decided it was time to leave. "Let's head back to the cabin before it gets dark," he said, giving Luna a reassuring pat. She barked in agreement, her energy still high despite the chill in the air. As they stepped back outside, the sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the snow. The beauty of the landscape was breathtaking, but Ethan felt a nagging sense of unease. It was as if the forest held its breath, waiting for something to happen. He shook off the feeling, focusing instead on the excitement of their find. As they made their way back across the field, the wind picked up, sending a flurry of snow swirling around them. Ethan tightened his scarf, glancing at Luna, who seemed unfazed by the sudden gusts. They continued on, the thrill of discovery propelling them forward. But just as they neared the edge of the woods, a sound broke the tranquility, an echoing howl that sent chills down Ethan's spine. It was a haunting, mournful sound, unlike anything he had ever heard. Luna's ears perked up, and she looked around, her body tense. "What was that?" Ethan muttered, glancing around nervously. He had heard stories of wolves in these parts, but he had never encountered one himself. The howling echoed again, closer this time, and a sense of foreboding settled over him. "Let's keep moving," he said, urging Luna forward. They pushed through the trees, the sounds of the forest fading behind them. But the howl lingered in his mind. The wild was alive, and it was both beautiful and terrifying. As they reached the cabin, Ethan quickly shut the door behind them, locking it tight. He took a moment to catch his breath, the adrenaline coursing through him. Luna trotted over to the fire, settling down beside it, her eyes alert as she listened to the sounds outside. Ethan sat down, his heart still racing. The thrill of their discovery had been overshadowed by the haunting howl, and he couldn't shake the feeling that the wilderness was calling to him in a way he didn't fully understand. What lay beyond the woods? What unseen dangers lurked in the shadows? He glanced at Luna, who looked up at him with eyes filled with trust and loyalty. In that moment, he realized that no matter how daunting the wilderness seemed, they would face it together. They were a team, united by their shared struggles and victories. As the fire crackled and the wind howled outside, Ethan felt a mix of fear and exhilaration. The wild was calling, and he knew that their journey was far from over. Together, they would navigate the challenges ahead, embracing the call of the wild and whatever it might bring. The night wore on, and as Ethan settled into his usual spot by the fire, he found his thoughts drifting back to the howl. It echoed in his mind, a haunting reminder of the untamed world surrounding them. What had made that sound? Was it a solitary wolf, searching for companionship? Or was it a pack, marking their territory in the vast wilderness? He couldn't ignore the instinctual thrill that ran through him at the thought. Wolves were majestic creatures, wild and free, embodying the very essence of the wilderness. He had always admired them from afar, but now, the thought of encountering one felt both exhilarating and terrifying. "What do you think, Luna?" he mused aloud, glancing at his companion. "Should we seek them out?" Luna tilted her head, as if contemplating his question. The fire crackled, casting a warm glow around the cabin, but outside, the night was dark and foreboding. Ethan's thoughts turned to his past. He had always been drawn to nature, but life had kept him tethered to the mundane. Now, in this wild and beautiful place, he was rediscovering himself, shedding the layers of his old life like the bark of a tree. The wilderness had a way of awakening something primal within him, a sense of connection to the earth and its creatures. After a while, he decided to write in his journal, a habit he had developed to document his thoughts and experiences. He pulled out the worn notebook and began to write, pouring his heart onto the pages. He chronicled their adventures, the beauty of the landscape, and the bond he had formed with Luna. Each word felt cathartic, a release of the emotions that had been bottled up inside him. As he wrote, Luna lay curled up at his feet, her breathing steady and calm. Ethan smiled down at her, grateful for her presence. She had become his confidant, his source of comfort in this isolated world. He often wondered if she sensed the weight of his thoughts, the struggles he faced in adjusting to this new life. Hours passed, and the fire began to dwindle, casting flickering shadows on the walls of the cabin. Ethan closed his journal, feeling a sense of accomplishment. He had captured their journey, a testament to their resilience and determination. But as he prepared to extinguish the fire and retire for the night, another howl broke the silence outside. This one was closer, a low, mournful sound that resonated through the still air. Ethan's heart raced as he exchanged a glance with Luna, who was now on high alert, her ears perked and her body tense. "Stay close, Luna," he whispered, fear gripping him. He knew they were safe within the cabin, but the wild call of the wolf was a reminder of the untamed world outside. What if there were wolves nearby? What if they were searching for food? In that moment, Ethan felt a surge of protective instinct rise within him. He had to ensure Luna's safety above all else. Grabbing the old axe he had found earlier, he felt a strange sense of empowerment. He was no longer just a man trying to survive. He was a protector, ready to defend his companion against whatever dangers might lurk in the shadows. With the axe in hand, he made his way to the door, peering out into the darkness. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the snow-covered landscape in a soft silver glow. The forest loomed around him, quiet and still, but the howl echoed again, a haunting reminder that he was not alone. "Let's see what's out there," he said, turning to Luna. "We need to be cautious, but we can't let fear hold us back." Together, they stepped outside, the cold air hitting Ethan like a wave. His breath fogged in front of him as he scanned the surroundings, searching for any signs of movement. The world was eerily quiet, the only sounds being the crunch of snow beneath their feet and the distant rustle of branches swaying in the wind. "Stay close to me," he instructed Luna, who remained alert, her eyes darting around as if sensing the tension in the air. They moved cautiously, sticking to the edge of the clearing, where the trees offered some cover. As they ventured deeper, the howling grew louder, a chorus of voices intertwining in the night. Ethan felt a shiver run down his spine, but he pressed on, driven by an insatiable curiosity. The wilderness was alive, filled with mysteries waiting to be uncovered. At that moment, a figure emerged from the shadows. A large, majestic wolf stepped into view, its coat thick and glistening in the moonlight. Ethan froze, his heart racing. The wolf stood tall and proud, its eyes shining with intelligence and awareness. It seemed to assess them, gauging their presence. Luna whimpered softly, taking a step back, and Ethan instinctively tightened his grip on the axe, ready to defend her, if necessary. But the wolf did not advance. Instead, it tilted its head, as if inviting them to join it in the wild. Ethan felt a strange connection to the creature, an understanding that transcended words. This wolf, a symbol of the wild, represented everything he had come to admire: the freedom, the instinct, the rawness of life in the wilderness. He could feel the pull of the wild beckoning him, urging him to embrace his place within it. "Luna, it's okay," he whispered, feeling a surge of bravery. "I think it wants us to follow." With a deep breath, he took a step forward, lowering the axe slightly. The wolf watched him, its gaze steady and unwavering. Ethan felt a wave of calm wash over him, dispelling the fear that had gripped him moments before. To his surprise, the wolf turned and began to walk away, glancing back to ensure they were following. "Let's go, Luna," he said, his voice barely above a whisper as he started to move after the magnificent creature. They followed the wolf through the trees, the night alive with the sounds of the wild. The wolf led them deeper into the forest, weaving through the trees with an elegance that left Ethan in awe. He marveled at the way it moved, confident and sure, as if it were intimately familiar with every inch of the terrain. As they ventured further, Ethan felt a sense of exhilaration course through him. This was no longer just an adventure. It was a journey into the heart of the wild, a chance to connect with something greater than himself. Luna trotted beside him, her curiosity piqued as she took in the sights and sounds around them. Eventually, they reached a small clearing where the snow had been disturbed, revealing signs of life. Fresh tracks crisscrossed the ground, and remnants of a recent hunt lay scattered about. The wolf paused, sniffing the air, its ears twitching as it surveyed the area. Ethan watched in awe, realizing that he was witnessing a glimpse into the life of the wild. This was a world governed by instinct, survival, and the raw beauty of nature. He felt a surge of gratitude for the opportunity to experience it, even if just for a moment. But as he stood there, a sense of reality began to sink in. They were stepping into a realm far removed from their safe cabin, where the laws of nature reigned supreme. The thrill of adventure was tinged with a reminder of the dangers that lurked in the shadows. The wolf turned to face him, its eyes piercing and wise, as if urging him to understand the delicate balance of life in the wild. Ethan felt a newfound respect for the creature and the world it inhabited. He had come to realize that survival was not just about finding food or shelter. It was about understanding the connections that bound them all together. "Thank you for showing us this," he whispered to the wolf, his heart swelling with appreciation. The creature seemed to acknowledge his words, giving a slight nod before turning back to the tracks, its close instincts guiding it forward. As the wolf moved through the clearing, Ethan felt a pull to stay and watch, to immerse himself in this moment of connection. But Luna tugged gently at his sleeve, her eyes wide with excitement and perhaps a hint of apprehension. "You're right, girl," he said softly, glancing back at the path they had traveled. "We should head back before it gets too late." Reluctantly, he turned away from the clearing, following Luna as they retraced their steps. The wolf lingered for a moment, watching them go before disappearing into the shadows of the forest. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling a mixture of awe and longing as he realized that they had shared a moment that would forever change him. Back at the cabin, Ethan locked the door behind him, the fire still crackling warmly in the hearth. He settled down beside Luna, who curled up contentedly at his feet. The night outside was filled with the sounds of the wild, but inside, the cabin was a sanctuary, a safe haven where they could reflect on their adventure. As he sat there, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that the wilderness was calling him, urging him to embrace the wild within himself. He realized that the journey ahead would not only be about survival, but also about discovery of the world around him and of the depths of his own heart. With Luna by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The wild was alive, vibrant, and full of mystery, and he was determined to answer its call. Together, they would navigate the twists and turns of their journey, embracing the beauty and the danger of the wilderness, side by side. The days continued to pass, with Ethan and Luna settling into a winter routine filled with adventure and growth. Yet, despite the beauty of their surroundings, Ethan felt a lingering restlessness and a deep sense of loneliness. Memories of his past life haunted him, moments of laughter and companionship that felt distant and unattainable. One evening, as he sat by the fire, he reflected on his old life, longing for the connections he had taken for granted. "Do you think they miss me, Luna?" he asked softly. Luna nudged him, offering comfort, but the emptiness still weighed heavily on him. Determined to shake off his melancholy, Ethan decided to take a walk under the stars. The night air was crisp, and the forest was alive with sounds. He wandered into a moonlit clearing, captivated by the beauty around him. But then, a flicker of movement caught his attention. A figure emerged from the shadows. Ethan was startled to find a young woman, Mia, who looked disheveled and afraid. "Please, don't hurt me," she pleaded. After reassuring her, he invited her to his cabin, where she revealed she had gotten lost while searching for food. Once inside, Ethan offered her warmth and tea, and they shared stories of their past struggles. Mia spoke of her life falling apart and how she had ended up alone in the wilderness. Ethan empathized, understanding the weight of solitude. As they sat by the fire, Mia's presence filled the cabin with life, and Ethan felt a sense of hope wash over him. Together, they would navigate the challenges of the wild, forging a new connection that replaced the shadows of his past with the promise of companionship and adventure.